So hopefully this works, and it does. Shabbat Shalom. Good evening, guys. We're going to be not in Revelation. Sorry if I'm disappointing anybody, but we're going to light up the candle, light up the two candles. The two candles are fed by the same oil. Since forever ago. This is what every Sabbath, every traditional Orthodox Jewish family does. They light the two candles, and so this is an olive oil, pure cold pressed olive oil lamp that I just made from spare parts around the house. We have a cotton T-shirt that was no longer serviceable that we use for the wick, and so we run an olive oil lamp here. When I was doing a teaching on the 10 virgins and oil in the lamp, I'm like, how do you teach this with candles? Right? I had never even seen an actual, like I've seen, fuel oil lamps, but I had never even seen in my life somebody burn cold pressed olive oil in a lamp. So I was like, I'm just going to make one. So that's how that went. Well, guys, tonight we're learning about Armageddon. You're going to hear me throw around a lot of terms, so we got to start with terms. When we're starting with terms, we start with Revelation 16 and focus in when we hit verse 16. You won't miss it. Yeah, thank you, sis. I want to do two things. I want you to sing, and then if you're up for it, open with prayer. I'm going to turn this guy around and let you guys do that.
Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Thou art the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me after thy will, while I am waiting, yielded and still. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Search me and try me, Master, today. Whiter than snow, Lord, wash me just now, as in thy presence humbly I bow. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Hold o'er my being absolute sway, filled with thy spirit, till all shall see Christ only always living in me.
Thank you. Gracious Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather. We thank you that we have access to your word. I just pray that you would be with Aaron as he's teaching tonight and just help us to receive your word. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. So this might be guilty of title shock in this case, and you guys are going to find out I have a talent for leveling everything here, because Armageddon in its context. Well, let's read it and then we'll talk about the context, right? We do not need to read all of Revelation 16 to get the idea here. We will be doing another study on Revelation not too long from now, but we're going to start right here in the sixth angel, Revelation 16:12. This is the sixth bowl of wrath. That's 6 of 7, that is. We're not going to be so brief with other passages tonight, so we're going to go a little brief with this one. And the sixth poured out his bowl on the great river, the Euphrates, and its water was dried up, so that the way would be prepared for the kings from the east. And I saw out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits like frogs. For they are spirits of demons performing signs, which go out to the kings of the whole world to gather them together for the war of the great day of God, the Almighty. Behold, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake and keeps his clothes, so that he will not walk about naked, and men will not see his shame. And they gathered them together to the place which is called, in Hebrew, is called Armageddon. So that's all we're going to read tonight from the Revelation. But what I want to point out is that Armageddon is a place. In Hebrew, Megiddo. In Greek, Mageddon. Same place. So Megiddo is a specific place. Actually, it was built by Solomon. It was a city built by Solomon. And it is in the valley of Jezreel. Okay. Har Megiddo means the fortification of the mountain of crowds. It can mean fortification as well, right? Like, so a city wall. We have to sort of be flexible with this meaning. When you talk about mountain, you're talking about in sort of the Hebrew language, the prophetic language. You're talking about a high place, a place of a position of power. So you can be talking about literally the city that was built in the valley of Jezreel. Or you could be talking about a mountain adjacent to it. There's a fortification that lasted for literally hundreds, maybe thousands of years right there after Solomon built it up. We'll be reading about it for the next couple of weeks, I suspect. But we have to realize that when it talks about Megiddo, Armageddon, Harmegiddo, it is talking about also talking about Jezreel. And it means, well, basically, it goes like this. During the past 4,000 years, I counted 34 bloody conflicts in this one spot. Okay, this one little inconsequential square mile area, right? So the Egyptians, the Canaanites, the Israelites, the Midianites, the Amalekites, the Philistines, the Hasmoneans, the Greeks, Romans, Muslims, the Crusaders, the Mamluks, the Mongols, the French, the Ottomans, the British, the Australians, the Germans, the Arabs, and the Israelis have all fought and lost people in Armageddon, okay, in Jezreel. Tutmos III, Pharaoh, Deborah and Barak, Cicero, Gideon, Saul, Jonathan, Shishak, Jehu, Joram, Jezebel, Josiah, Antiochus, Ptolemy, Vespasian, Saladin, Napoleon, and Allenby all highly relate to this one spot. And my history guy knows how much that is packed into one little weird area, right? This is significant. This is a significant place. It's actually somewhere in the middle of the highway between Egypt and Damascus. So
And it was a city called what?
so the city that Solomon built was actually called Megiddo. It's in an area called the Valley of Jezreel. So, and Jezreel means, I actually looked it up and I promptly forgot, but you know what? It means Elohim, God, sows seed. Jezreel it's like where God plants, where God sows the seeds. There seems to be some significance around that too. So when we read about Jezreel, same place. You guys tracking with this?
A lot of blood to be shed there.
An unbelievable amount of final battles. An unbelievable amount of people have lost their lives. An unbelievable amount of people have had victory, total victory over an enemy there. It's actually quite stunning, especially since it's a big open field. Like, right? There's a city there, but it's not, the city itself is not terribly consequential. Or there isn't, but there was a city. Actually, I have no idea if there is now. But the Megiddo, the city, is not consequential. I addressed all of this because we're going to read a lot about Jezreel. We'll read a little bit about Megiddo. Tonight, we're going to look at the story of Gideon, maybe from an angle you guys have considered, maybe from a completely new angle. I'm not sure. But before we jump into Gideon, which is in Judges 6, I actually want to read, well, I made a quick mention about it, 1 Kings 4. That list I read, you can see why we wouldn't want to tackle everything tonight, right? It's entirely too much.
Did you say First Kings?
1 Kings 4, yes. So the reason we're reading this is because I'm telling you an association. Don't want you to have to believe me. 1 Kings 4:12. This is a list of Solomon's deputies over Israel, that like his governors of his different provinces. And verse 12 here, Baana, son of Ehud in Teneach and Megiddo, and all Beth Shean, which is beside Zarethan, below Jezreel. There it is, right? It's like right in that little area that he was in. This guy was in charge of. It's Megiddo, Jezreel, same place. There are, because we know history and archaeology, we know like where these things are located. Feel free to look them up. But I just wanted to show you guys right there in the Bible, it associates them as being in the exact, like within the same little sub-region. So we got to go to Numbers 21 now.
Where did you say?
Numbers 21. And I have to tell you guys, this might be the longest reading of the night. You know about Balaam, right? You guys know about Balaam, son of Beor?
Balaam's donkey?
Yeah, we're going to read about Balaam's donkey and then Balaam's prophecies.
This is under what?
Numbers 21.
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. We talked a lot about
It might be 22. Sorry, Numbers 22. Yeah, we'll start in verse 1. And I'm going to kind of power through this. The sons of Israel journeyed and camped in the plains. By the way, this is when they're wandering about in the desert before they enter the promised land. The sons of Israel journeyed and camped in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan, opposite Jericho. Now Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. So Moab was in great fear because of the people, for they were numerous, and Moab was in dread of the sons of Israel. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, here's Midian's entering the picture, right? Now this horde will lick up all that is around us as the ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of Moab at the time. So he sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, at Pethor, which is near the river, in the land of the sons of his people, to call him, saying, Behold, a people came out of Egypt. Behold, they cover the surface of the land, and they are living opposite me. Now therefore, please come, curse this people for me, since they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I may be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he who you curse is cursed. So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the fees for divination in their hand, and they came to Balaam and repeated Balak's words to him. He said to them, Spend the night here, and I will bring back to you as Yahuwah may speak to me. and the leaders of Moab stayed with Balaam. Then God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" Balaam said to God, "Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent word to me. Behold, there is a people who came out of Egypt, and they cover the surface of the land. Now come, curse them for me. Perhaps I may be able to fight against them and drive them out." God said to Balaam, "Do not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed." So Balaam arose in the morning, and he said to Balak's leaders, "Go back to your land, for Yahweh has refused to let me go with you." Leaders of Moab arose and went to Balak and said, "Balaam refused to come with us." Balak again sent his leaders, more numerous and distinguished than the former. They came to Balaam and said to him, "Thus says Balak, the son of Zippor, let nothing, I beg you, hinder you from coming to me. For I will indeed honor you richly, and I will do whatever you say to me. Please come then, curse this people for me." Balaam replied to the servants of Balak, "Though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could do nothing, either small or great, contrary to the command of Yahweh, my God. Now please, you also stay here tonight, and I will find out what else Yahweh will speak to me." God came to Balaam at night and said to him, "If the men have come to call you, rise up and go with them. But only the word which I speak to you shall you do." So Balaam arose in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the leaders of Moab. When God says it once, should we go back and ask him again?
No.
It's probably not an awesome idea, but he told him to go with him. By the way, this is Balaam who calls Yahweh God. He calls him my God, right? He hears the words of the Lord. God was angry because he was going. And the angel of Yahweh took his stand in the way as an adversary against him. Now he was riding on his donkey, and his two servants were with him. When the donkey saw the angel of Yahweh standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand, the donkey turned off from the way and went into the field, but Balaam struck the donkey to turn her back into the way. Then the angel of Yahweh stood in a narrow path of the vineyards, a wall on this side and a wall on that. When the donkey saw the angel of Yahweh, she pressed herself to the wall and pressed Balaam's foot against the wall. So he struck her again. The angel of Yahweh went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn to the right hand or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of Yahweh, she lay down under Balaam. So Balaam was angry and struck the donkey with his stick. And Yahweh opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, "Why? What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times?" Balaam said to the donkey, "Because you have made a mockery of me. If there had been a sword in my hand, I would have killed you by now." The donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your donkey on which you have ridden all your life to this day? Have I ever been accustomed to do so to you?" He said, "No." Then Yahweh opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of Yahweh standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed all the way to the ground. The angel of Yahweh said to him, "Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out as an adversary because your way was contrary to me. But the donkey saw me and turned aside from me these 3 times. If she had not turned aside from me, I surely would have killed you just now and let her live." Balaam said to the angel of Yahweh, "I have sinned, for I did not know that you were standing in the way against me. Now then, if it is displeasing to you, I will turn back." But the angel of Yahweh said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but you shall speak only the word which I tell you." So Balaam went along with the leaders of Balak. When Balak heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet him at the city of Moab, which is on the Arnon border, on the extreme end of the border. Then Balak said to Balaam, "Did I not urgently send to you to call you? Why did you not come to me? Am I really unable to honor you?" So Balaam said to Balak, "Behold, I have come now to you. Am I able to speak anything at all? The word that God puts in my mouth, that I shall speak." Balaam went to Balak, and they came to Kiriath Huzoth. So this is about Midianites, guys, and Balaam's a Midianite. This is the Moabites are and the Midianites are involved in this thing. So Balak does a sacrifice according to what Balaam says, and then he goes up to a high area, and we're going to jump into 23. We'll start in verse 4.
What is it? What is it again?
We're just going to jump down a few verses to 23:4.
Numbers 23.
Yeah, Numbers 23:4. Now God met Balaam and said to him, I have set up the 7 altars. I have offered the bull and the ram on each altar. Then Yahweh put a word in Balaam's mouth and said, return to Balak, and you shall speak thus. So he returned to him, and behold, he was standing beside his burnt offering, he and all the leaders of Moab. And Balaam took up his discourse and said, now whose words are these? These are God's words, because God put the words in his mouth. So even though Balaam ends up being a bad guy, these are God's words, okay? From Aram, Balak has brought me, Moab's king from the mountains of the east. Come curse Jacob for me, and come denounce Israel. How shall I curse whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce whom Yahweh has not denounced? As I see him from the top of the rocks, as I look at him from the hills, behold, a people dwelling apart, and will not be reckoned among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob, or number the 4th part of Israel? Let me die the death of the upright, and let my end be like his. Balak said to Balaam, what have you done to me? I took you to curse my enemies, but behold, you've actually blessed them. Balaam replied, must I not be careful to speak what Yahweh puts in my mouth? So they go to another spot. I'm going to jump down to 18. Actually, let's not quite do that. Let's go to 16. Then Yahweh met Balaam and put a word in his mouth and said, return to Balak, and thus you shall speak. He came to him, and behold, he was standing beside his burnt offering, and the leaders of Moab with him. And Balak said to him, what has Yahweh spoken? And so whose words are these? God's words. He took up his discourse and said, arise, O Balak, and hear. Give ear to me, O son of Zippor. God is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man that he should repent. He has said, and will he not do it? Or he has spoken, and will he not make it good? Behold, I have received to bless. When he has blessed, then I cannot revoke it. He has not observed misfortune in Jacob, nor has he seen trouble in Israel. Yahweh, his God, is with him, and the shout of a king is among them. God brings them out of Egypt. He is for them like the horns of a wild ox, for there is no omen against Jacob, nor is there divination against Israel. At the proper time, it shall be said to Jacob and to Israel what God has done. Behold, a people rises like a lioness, and as a lion it lifts itself. It will not lie down until it devours the prey and drinks the blood of the slain. Balak said to Balaam, do not curse them at all, nor bless them at all. But Balaam replied to Balak, did I not tell you, whatever Yahweh speaks, that I must do? And then they go to another place. But in 24:1, here's where the tone changes. When Balaam saw that it pleased Yahweh to bless Israel, he did not go as other times to seek omens, but he set his face toward the wilderness. And Balaam lifted up his eyes and saw Israel camping tribe by tribe, and the Spirit of God came upon him. It could say the word anyway. The Spirit of God came upon him anyway, right? Because he was trying not to speak the words of God and to curse them. So whose words are these? The Spirit of God came upon him. These are God's words. And this gets beautiful. The oracle of Balaam, the son of Beor, and the oracle of a man whose eye is open, the oracle of him who hears the words of God, who sees the vision of the Almighty, falling down, yet having his eyes uncovered. How fair are your tents, O Jacob, your dwellings, O Israel, like valleys that stretch out, like gardens beside the river, like aloes planted by Yahweh, like cedars beside the water. Water will flow from his buckets, and his seed will be by many waters. and his king shall be higher than Agag. His kingdom shall be exalted. God brings him out of Egypt. He is for him like the horns of a wild ox. He will devour the nations, his adversaries, and will crush their bones in pieces. He will shatter with his arrows. He couches. He lies down as a lion, and as a lion, who dares rouse him? Blessed is everyone who blesses you, and cursed is everyone who curses you. Balak's anger burned against Balaam, and he struck his hand together. And Balak said to Balaam, I called you to curse my enemies, but behold, you have persisted in blessing them 3 times. Therefore, flee to your place now. I said I would honor you greatly, but behold, Yahweh has held you back from your honor. Balaam said to Balak, did I not tell you your messengers whom you had sent to me, saying, though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not do anything contrary to the command of Yahweh, either good or bad, of my own accord. What Yahweh speaks, that I will speak. And now, behold, I am going to get to my people. Come, and I will advise you of what this people will do to your people in days to come. And he took up his discourse and said, the oracle of Balaam, son of Beor, the oracle of a man whose eye is open, the oracle of him who hears the words of God and knows the knowledge of the Most High, who sees the vision of the Almighty falling down, yet having his eyes uncovered. I see him now, but not now. I see him, but not now. Sorry. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come forth from Jacob, a scepter shall rise from Israel, and shall crush through the forehead of Moab, and tear down all the sons of Sheth. Edom shall be a possession. Seir, its enemies, also will be a possession. While Israel performs valiantly, one from Jacob shall have dominion, and will destroy the remnant from the city. He looked at Amalek, took up his discourse, and said, Amalek was the first of nations, but his end, destruction. And he looked at Kenite and took up his discourse and said, your dwelling place is enduring, and your nest is set in the cliff. Nevertheless, Cain will be consumed. How long will Asher keep you alive? Then he took up his discourse and said, alas, who can live except God has ordained it? But ships shall come from the coast of Kittim, and they shall afflict Asher, and will afflict Eber, so they will also will come to destruction. Then Balaam arose and departed and returned to his place, and Balak went his way. Well, that's not the end of the story. Balaam decides he still wants money from Balak and honor, so we read elsewhere that Balaam tells Balak, all you need to do is send in your women, Midianite and Moabite women, and they'll corrupt all the sons of Israel. Don't worry about it. And that's exactly what happens. And we read about actually one of the sons of Israel and a Midianite woman defiling the entire company because they are having intercourse in front of the congregation. And if not for Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, running them both through with a spear, the wrath of God was going to burn on the whole camp. Why is this a really important story? Well, we read in 25, that's Numbers 25:16. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, be hostile to the Midianites and strike them, for they have been hostile to you with their tricks, with which they have deceived you in the affair of Beor and the affair of Cosbi, and the daughter of the leader of Midian, their sister, who was slain on the day of the plague because of Beor. Midian was given judgment because of this. We're going to read real quick in Numbers 31. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, take full vengeance for the sons of Israel on the Midianites. I should give you guys time to catch up. That's Numbers 31. Afterward, you will be gathered to your people. That means die. Moses spoke to the people, saying, arm men from among you for war, for they may go against Midian to execute Yahweh's vengeance on Midian. 1,000 from each tribe of the tribes of Israel you shall send to war. How many are getting sent? 12,000. Right? So there were furnished from the thousands of Israel 1,000 from each tribe, 12,000 armed for war. Moses sent them 1,000 from each tribe to the war, and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, to war with them, and holy vessels and trumpets for the alarm in his hand. So they made war against Midian, just as Yahweh had commanded Moses, and they killed every male. They killed the kings of Midian along with the rest of their slain, Evi and Rechem and Zur and Hur and Reba, the 5 kings of Midian. They also killed Balaam, son of Beor, with the sword. So we're going to lead off there. You guys, if you want to do your diligent homework, you can read all about the absolute and total wrath of God when it's poured out. But of course, Midian survived. And we know because we're jumping into Judges. God's posture with Midian is not terribly favorable at this point, right? They certainly made enemies with Israel. So Judges 6, and this is how almost every chapter of Judges starts, or every passage of Judges starts. The sons of Israel did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh. Oh, you'll read that a lot.
Which verse is it?
That's starting in 6:1. By the way, we're going to go back to 5 next week, probably. But starting in 6:1, the sons of Israel did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, and Yahweh gave them into the hands of Midian 7 years. The power of Midian prevailed over against Israel. Because of Midian, the sons of Israel made for themselves dens which were in the mountains and caves and the strongholds. So they made themselves, they hid in the cliffs of the caves of the rocks, right? Does this sound vaguely familiar from the Revelation? Does this sound familiar from a lot of conversation about the end times? For when it was when Israel had sown, that is, sown seed, that the Midianites would come up with the Amalekites and the sons of the east and go against them. So they would camp against them and destroy the produce of the earth as far as Gaza, and leave no sustenance in Israel, as well as no sheep, ox, or donkey. For they would come up with their livestock and their tents. They would come in like locusts for number. Both they and their camels were innumerable, and they came into the land to devastate it. So Israel was brought very low because of Midian, and the sons of Israel cried out to Yahweh. Now it came about when the sons of Israel cried to Yahweh on account of Midian, Yahweh sent a prophet to the sons of Israel. And he said to them, Thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, It was I who brought you up from Egypt and brought you out from the house of slavery. I delivered you from the hands of the Egyptians and from the hands of all your oppressors, and dispossessed them before you and gave you their land. And I said to you, I am Yahweh, your God. You shall not fear the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you live, but you haven't obeyed me. Then the angel of Yahweh came and sat under the oak that was at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abizarite, and his son Gideon, as his son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress in order to save it for the Midianites. The angel of Yahweh appeared to him and said to him, Yahweh is with you, O valiant warrior. Then Gideon said to him, O my Lord, if Yahweh is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his miracles, which our fathers told us about, saying, Did not Yahweh bring us up out of Egypt? But now Yahweh has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian. Kind of a lot of a feeling I hear from some people here and there, right? Yahweh looked at him and said, Go in this your strength and deliver Israel from the hand of Midian. Have I not sent you? When God says, you have no choice but to do. Take a look at what just happened to Balaam a few minutes ago, right? He said to him, O Lord, how shall I deliver Israel? Behold, my family is the least in Manasseh, and I am the youngest in my father's house. When he says I'm the least in Manasseh, what does that mean, guys? That means he is an Israelite, but he is not a Jew. Fair enough? Because Jew is Judah, Benjamin, or Levi. Manasseh is one of the northern kingdoms. They're considered Israel, but they're not Jews. But Yahweh said to him, surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat Midian as one man. So Gideon said to him, if now I have found favor in your sight, then show me a sign that it is in fact you who speak with me. Please do not depart from here until I come back to you and bring out my offering and lay it before you. And he said, I will remain until you return. Then Gideon went in and prepared a young goat and unleavened bread from an ephah of flour. He put the meat in a basket and the broth in a pot and brought them out to him under the oak and presented them. The angel of God said to him, take the meat and the unleavened bread and lay them on this rock, pour out the broth. And he did so. Then the angel of Yahweh put out the end of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread, and fire sprang up from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. Then the angel of Yahweh vanished from his sight. When Gideon saw that he was the angel of Yahweh, he said, alas, O Master Yahweh, for now I have seen the angel of Yahweh face to face. He says, alas, because people are supposed to die if they see God, right? Yahweh said to him, peace to you. Do not fear, you shall not die. Then Gideon built an altar there to Yahweh and named it Yahweh is Shalom. That is, Yahweh is peace. To this day, it is still in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. Now on the same night, Yahweh said to him, take your father's bull and a second bull, 7 years old, and pull down the altar of Baal, which belongs to your father, and cut down the Asherah that is beside it, and build an altar to Yahweh your God on top of this stronghold in an orderly manner, and take a second bull and burnt offering with the wood of the Asherah, which you shall cut down. Then Gideon took 10 men of his servants and did as Yahweh had spoken to him. And because he was too afraid of his father's household and the men of the city to do it by day, he did it by night. When the men of the city arose early in the morning, and behold, the altar of Baal was torn down, and the Asherah which was beside it was cut down, and the second bull was offered on the altar which had been built. They said to each other, who did this thing? And when they had searched about and inquired, they said, Gideon, the son of Joash, did this thing. Then the men of the city said to Joash, bring out your son that he may die, for he has torn down the altar of Baal, and indeed he has cut down the Asherah which was beside it. But Joash said to all who stood against him, will you contend for Baal? Or will you deliver him? Whoever will plead for him shall be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him contend for himself, because someone has torn down his altar. Therefore, on that day, he named him Jerubbaal. That is to say, let Baal contend against him. Sort of means let Baal defend himself, because he had torn down his altar. Then all the Midianites and the Amalekites and the sons of the east assembled themselves, and they crossed over and camped. Where, guys? In the valley of Jezreel. They camped at Armageddon, because it's a great number of them right there in the valley of Jezreel. So the spirit of Yahweh came upon Gideon, and he blew the shofar, and the Abiezrites were called together to follow him. That's why I was blowing the shofar a little bit tonight. I was kind of feeling it. He sent messengers through Manasseh, and they also were called together to follow him. And he sent messengers to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, and they came up to meet them. Then Gideon said to God, if you will deliver Israel through me, as you have spoken, behold, I will put a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece only, and it is dry on all the ground, then I will know that you will deliver Israel through me, as you have spoken. And it was so. When he arose early in the morning and squeezed the fleece, he drained the dew from the fleece, a bowl full of water. Then Gideon said to God, do not let your anger burn against me, that I may speak once more, please. Let me make a test once more with the fleece. Let it now be dry only on the fleece, and let there be dew on all the ground. God did so that night, for it was dry only on the fleece, and dew was on all the ground. kind of wondered about this because he's testing God. I don't have anything solid to give you guys, but I think that this was more about Gideon. He didn't say, "Are you really God?" He said, "Are you really going to use me?" It's a little bit different posture, right? Are you really going to use me? Is it, let me make sure I'm hearing you right. He didn't doubt his power to do it. He just doubted. Gideon was more doubting himself and his ears, it seems.
Hmm.
I kind of relate to that. Where are we? Chapter 7, verse 1. Then Yerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and camped beside the spring of Harod. And the camp of Midian was on the north side of them, by the hill of Morah in the valley. Yahweh said to Gideon, the people who are with you are too many for me to give Midian into your hands. For Israel would become boastful, saying, my own power has delivered me. Now therefore come, proclaim in the hearing of the people, say, whoever is afraid and trembling, let him return and depart from Mount Gilead. So 22,000 people returned, but 10,000 remained. Then Yahweh said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I'll test them there for you. Therefore it shall be that he of whom I said to you, this one shall go with you, he shall go with you. But everyone of whom I say, this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. So he brought the people down to the water, and Yahweh said to Gideon, you shall separate everyone who laps the water with his tongue as a dog laps, as well as everyone who kneels to drink. Now the number of those who lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, was 300 men. All the rest of the people kneeled to drink water. Then Yahweh said to Gideon, I will deliver you with the 300 men who lapped, and will give the Midianites into your hands. So let all the other people go, each man to his home. So the 300 men took the people's provisions and their trumpets into their hands. And Gideon sent all the other men of Israel, each to his tent, but retained 300 men. And the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. Now the same night it came about, Yahweh said to him, arise, go down against the camp, for I have given it into your hands. If you are too afraid to go down, go with Purah, your servant, down to the camp, and you will hear what they say, and afterward your hands will be strengthened, that you may go down against the camp. So he went with Purah, his servant, down to the outposts of the army that was in the camp. Now the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the sons of the east were lying in the valley as numerous as locusts, and their camels were without number, as numerous as the sand on the seashore. It's the second time God called them locusts, right? When Gideon came, behold, a man was relating a dream to his friend, and he said to him, behold, I had a dream. A loaf of barley bread was tumbling into the camp of Midian, and it came to the tent and struck it so that it fell and turned it upside down, so the tent lay flat. His friend replied, this is nothing less than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given Midian and all the camp into his hand. When Midian heard the account of the dream and its interpretation, he bowed in worship. He returned to the camp of Israel and said, arise, for Yahweh has given the camp of Midian into your hands. He divided the 300 men into 3 companies. He put trumpets and empty pitchers into the hands of all of them with torches inside the pitchers. He said to them, look at me and do likewise. And behold, when I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I and all who are with me blow the trumpet, then you also blow the trumpets all around the camp and say, and this is shofars, like I was blowing earlier, guys. Blow the shofar all around the camp and say, for Yahweh and for Gideon. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, when they had just posted the watch, and they blew the trumpets and smashed the pitchers that were in their hands. When the 3 companies blew the shofar and broke the pitchers, they held the torches in their left hands and the trumpets in their right hands for blowing, and they cried, Hareb Yahuwah Yu LeGideon, a sword for Yahweh and for Gideon. Each stood in his place around the camp, and all the army ran, crying out as they fled. When they blew the 300 shofar, Yahweh set the sword of one against another, even throughout the whole army. The army fled as far as Beth Shittah towards Zerera, as far as the edge of Abel Maholah, and by Tabith. The men of Israel were summoned from Naphtali and Asher and all Manasseh, and they pursued Midian. Gideon sent messengers throughout all the hill country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against Midian and take the waters before them, as far as Beth Barah and the Jordan." So all the men of Ephraim were summoned, and they took the waters as far as Beth Barah and the Jordan. They captured the two leaders of Midian, Oreb and Zeeb, and they killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb. They killed Zeeb at the winepress of Zeeb, while they pursued Midian. And they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeeb to Gideon from across the Jordan. So the story continues, and it's good homework to read the rest of it. But when God gave this deliverance in Armageddon, when he judged the Midianites in Armageddon, the valley of Jezreel, wasn't a lot of men. Not a single sword. All they had was a shofar, a pitcher, and a torch. And the pitcher was to hide the torch until the right moment. When the armies of the nations were set into a frenzy by the blowing of the shofar, they turned their swords on each other. The armies of the nations killed each other while God's people watched on and didn't have to lift a finger. Only after they ripped each other to pieces as they were running for their lives and fleeing did they need to even be bothered to be cut down, because they were cutting each other down. God promises throughout the scripture he will turn Israel's enemies against each other. And this one, I wanted to lead off the story of Armageddon, because what does he say he's doing back in Revelation? We're going to turn back to 16. He says, I saw, 16:13, I saw out of the mouth of the dragon, that's Satan, by the way, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits like frogs. They're spirits of demons performing signs, which go out to the kings of the whole world. Why? They go out to the kings of the whole world. Is anybody looking at it? To gather them together for the war of the great day of God. The kings of the earth are coming to the war. And what's about to happen? They're going to turn on each other when God blows the shofar. Because don't forget, we hear about it from Paul, at the last trumpet, right? At the last trumpet. The trumpets are that very same shofar. When God blows the shofar, they'll turn on each other. And at most, we'll be batting cleanup. We don't have to raise a finger. We just have to let a torch burn brightly. When that time comes,
Blow the horn.
we got to blow the shofar. We got to blow the warning, call the signs of battle, and we got to burn our torch. What is our torch?
And God will take care of it.
God will take care of the rest. He'll turn our enemies on each other. This is number one in the lessons of Armageddon, but wait till you see, because it gets so much sweeter. There's so many stories. On the great supper of God, to feast on kings and generals and mighty men. Exactly, yes. And what do we have to play in it? We have to burn our torch. We have to blow the shofar. And I dare say we don't want to get into the mix with a sword very much, do we? Not at that stage. Because do you really want to be mixing it up with the nations when they're mixing it up with each other? Sit back and relax, guys. That's the first lesson of Armageddon. Oh, let's do that at the end of Armageddon conversation. Let's not do that one tonight. I understand, But any statement from here is a speculation.
All right.
Might be well founded, might not be, depending on the person and the moment you're talking. But we're not going to get into where Armageddon sits in history. Only that when it comes, when it's that battle, what we need is a torch and a trumpet, a shofar. We need to
So
sound. We need to sound the alarm. Only those chosen by God.
How do you spell that?
In English, we tend to spell it Shofar, and it's there's a couple different types here.
Look at that engraved in my AR.
There are people who sound the warning. There are people who allow people who call out and
just like when they can't.
let us know
Same thing.
that it's time for war, that it's time for victory, that it's time that when we'll go over all the things the shofar's for, because that's part of this teaching too, in the teaching of Armageddon. But the torch is very clearly about carrying a light for Christ. And it's about God's Spirit. It's the two great lights, right? Spirit and truth, the Word and the Word made flesh. So we need to carry that, and we need to turn it up to level 10 for that purpose, don't we? Burn that torch as bright as we can when it's time to pull it out of the pitcher, and blow that shofar as loud as we can when it's time. The armies of the nations will turn on each other. We don't have to lift a finger.
You know, when I first heard that, I thought, because in my background from before, we just thought that everybody was gonna meet there and they were gonna fight Israel. They were gonna kill all the Israelites.
It's a common teaching.
Yeah. And then later on, when you don't have to do a thing. It's his battle.
In this story about Armageddon, the first one that we went to, and the reason we went to it first is because I think it has a lot to teach us. It shows the value of staying close to God, speaking, thinking, teaching your kids as you go, grandkids as you go, being willing to talk to people as the opportunities arise, and really just being bold for Christ, right? And the shofar's like that when it's time to sound the alarm.
You'll be able to blow them. Or
I'm sure working on it. But I'm gonna. Well, Joy, so that becomes a question of whether it's going to be literal, metaphorical, or both in that day, right? If we're sounding the war alarm, because that's what it is in that case, it's a call to battle. Well, what the nations heard that call to battle and killed each other, right? Normally, you'd call to battle and your troops would run in, but in this case, all they did was the call to battle, and they brought up a bunch of torches. Well, normally, if you had a fighting force that was fighting at night, one in probably 50 would be the one with the shofar, because you don't want everybody to have a shofar. That's crazy. Or 1 in 100. And then 1 in 100, 1 in 20 at least, 1 in 50, 1 in 100 would have a torch. They have all these shofar and all these torches. So all of a sudden they're terrified. Who's the enemy? They're all around me. I'm not even sure who they are. By the way, I don't know my neighbors, because these nations weren't with each other. They weren't trained with each other. They weren't used to aggregating with each other. And then it's dark. They can't see. They're blind, right? Yeah. They just start fighting everybody with a sword. Don't get in the mix, right? And there's kind of a lesson for this right now, guys. Don't get in the mix. There's a lot of nations at war already. If this is that time. By the way, the battle of Armageddon that it talks about in Revelation, it shouldn't say battle, it should say war. You guys know the distinction, right? Battle's won. Well, war is whatever series it is of battles. The word that's in the Greek actually means war of Armageddon. So it might not just be one battle like we think of it. It might be a series of conflicts. It could be a lot of series of conflicts potentially. But nonetheless, We'll be praying that we know it, see it, and stay out of it, except to burn the torch even brighter and sound the alarm even louder. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for every sign and symbol that you've given us about the things to come is grounded in things that you've given us. Help us to ingest all of the right things. Help us to diligently study so that we understand these things and don't go off on flights of fancy. Thank you for the for telling us the end from the beginning. Help us to follow diligently in the path, and help us most of all, Father, to follow in what you would have us do as the times come for these things. You've given us your spirit. We ask that you, each one of us, um, uh, have your spirit guide us entirely, so that we don't stray from the path that we should be on. We bless you and thank you, Father, in the name of Yeshua, Jesus. Amen.
And
All right, guys. Shabbat shalom to all of you online.